Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you my master sales tracker system. This is a copy of the system that I've been using, that I built, and this is a series of Zaps connected together, and also PandaDoc. We're using HubSpot as our CRM to track the deals. And this is a demo account to show you. And we're using PandaDoc to prepare the proposals, the deals, all the information, the different documents that need to go through to the client. And I'm tracking all of it in a Google Sheet. And I wanted to show you this. Actually, I prefer to put everything in HubSpot as much as possible, but sometimes I've had some clients who want to have a separate sheet where they can refer back to as well, and kind of like a high level view, so you can sort of see everything in one place. So that's why I'm going to go through and show you how to do this with a Google Sheet, and then tying it all together with Zapier as well. So to break it down, we've got this first Zap here, which happens when there's a new HubSpot deal, and it's going to create a record in the Google Sheets deal tracker as well. Then we have the next Zap where the HubSpot deal stage changes. That will update the Google Sheet tracker for the deal stage changing. Then we've got the big Zap. This Zap is the one that goes through 17 steps. And essentially, when it's triggered in HubSpot, it creates the PandaDoc, ready for editing, and we use a bit of ChatGPT. I've gone through this in previous videos as well, but I'm going to cover it again in this video. We have a ChatGPT step at the end, and we can prepare the PandaDoc basically almost ready to go to send to the client. The PandaDoc goes out, the contract proposal goes out to the client, and then depending on their response, we then save the information back into the Google Sheets. So, I mean, either way, we save it back in there as well. So this video, it's going to be quite a long video, and I'm going to go into depth. So if you're looking for something short and sweet, check out some of my other videos where I go through specific stages in this process, and it might be easier for you to look at that. I'd say this video is going to be longer, so if that's okay for you, then please join along. If not, then feel free to check out the other videos as well. So let's jump into our first Zap. So this Zap is our new HubSpot deal Zap. And so what's happening here is when there's a new deal added, let's go through and I'll add a new deal to start with. So in HubSpot, we could do this in any CRM, in theory, the same sort of setup. I'm a big fan of HubSpot, obviously, so I always use HubSpot when I can for CRM related things, or for email marketing as well, for a lot of different areas. So we're going to select one of our contacts here, one of our demo contacts. We'll try with Winter. And with this Winter Chalchu, we're going to create a new deal. So I've gone to her contact page and to the company that's associated to Winter. Then I can create a new deal, and that'll automatically be associated to those two, the contact and the company. And we're going to say new deal 2024, and everything can remain the same like this. And then I'm going to add in some line items, some products to the deal. So we've got a couple of packages that I've added in here before. We're going to add an accounting package, marketing package, one. We're going to add two of those, and we're going to add a package, three of this package, and we can create the deal, and that'll take us straight to the new deal. It automatically calculates the value of the deal. This is sort of in US dollars, obviously just for demonstration purposes. And we've got the line items over here. So we've got the deal object, and this is the deal that exists in the deal object. We've got the contact, which is a contact object that has an association with the deal, a company object that has an association with the deal, and then some line items like this. So then we can jump in. Now, I've gone through a video before and shown you how we can create a document directly with PandaDoc by clicking here and then editing, but we're going to set up a Zap to make it even faster and more automated. So let's start by going back to this first Zap that we're talking about first. So this is the new HubSpot deal, create a record in Google Sheets. So to create this Zap, we start with the trigger step with HubSpot, and the event is new deal. Select your account, add the trigger, and in this case, these are all the details that come through automatically from HubSpot into Zapier based on this trigger. And if you're missing some, for some reason it doesn't bring in deal stage or pipeline, I've added these as additional properties to retrieve. You can just type in and search for the particular property you want to pull in from HubSpot. You can add that there. So deal stage and pipeline, because I want that information. We then run and find new records. It'll give you a couple of demo records. If it doesn't come with any demo records, then you need to stimulate it by going into HubSpot, creating a deal like I've just done, so that we get that information come through as a first example. So it can help you build the Zap. So we've got our new deal that we just created here. So we're going to select that deal D and continue for the next stage of the Zap setup. We then need to do a HubSpot find association step. So we select HubSpot and find associations and our account. This is going to look for the associated objects that I just discussed for the deal. So the deal is connected to a contact, to a company, and also maybe to line items. So we want to get all of that information pulled in to this so that we can then put that stuff in the spreadsheet row in our Google Sheet for our tracker. So we start by adding in the ID. So this is the deal ID, like this. We add that in and we tell the system that this is a deal. The deal ID that we're looking at here, it's not a contact or company ID. We're starting with the deal ID as our record. And we want to then search for all the associations relating to that deal. And in this case, we want to find 2 associations. In this Zap, we're not going to use line items, so we don't have to worry about pulling in 3 association types. We just want 2. And the first one is contact, the second one is company, like that. So we could, for example, select line item, but we won't for this Zap that we're working on now. And then everything else you can leave as it is. We click continue. Let's retest that step. And as you can see here, we get our ID number, record ID for the contact, and our record ID for the company, like that. Click continue. And then I've added in a formatter step with the event utilities. And I'm going to use this to pull out just one contact record from this association step. So sometimes deals will have multiple contacts associated, but when it comes to using PandaDoc and Google Sheets, it can sometimes be a little bit annoying to have multiple contacts. If you do need to handle multiple contacts in these spreadsheets and the like, then it's possible to do it, but it involves a lot more, a few more steps. And I prefer to keep this sort of straightforward for this video. So we're just going to exclude any other contacts, and we're going to basically set this up in a way that just pulls one contact through. So we then have, after we select utilities, we then select the transform line item to text option. And then the input, if there's multiple contacts, it's going to actually have a number here, comma, another number, maybe multiple, comma, number, if there's more than 2 or 3 contacts associated. So we want to split this up into individual contact record ID numbers. And so in this case, it's very easy because there's just one, but I'm still setting this up just to cover for other cases. And you can see here the separator, you can select any separator, you can type in your own choice for separator, but in this case, the default is comma. And when this comes through in the input, it will also be comma. So we can leave that as default. Click continue, we retest the step. And in this case, there's only one, so it's pretty easy to see, but you could always test that with multiple. We then go to the next step here, HubSpot again, and we're going to get the information that's related to that deal. So we add the contact ID here, and then in this case, we just pull that out of the formatter step. So make sure you select that. Don't pull it from the HubSpot association, because the number we want is this formatter step number that we just formatted. We just pulled out from that before the comma. We can also grab additional properties here, and you can see here all the choice of all the properties that automatically come through. But if anything's not in this list, we can add them here and then click continue. Let's retest this step. Great, and we can see here, so that's the ID that it searched for. We can see all the detail from all those properties that I just mentioned, all the contact information for this, all the contact details for this particular contact. Same for company, get company, and then we add the company ID here. In this case, we're taking it from the second step, find associations in HubSpot, deal to company, and then it's a long number like this. And this ID number is actually at the end of the HubSpot URL. So if we were to click on New Republic here, this company, and if I just adjust the view here, you can see the code, the URL includes the ID, record ID. So that's nice that HubSpot do that. It makes it very easy to cross-check details. So that's why that number is this number here. That's from there, pulling it straight from there. So then essentially we can click continue again, unless you want to add in or get any additional properties. Retest that step. Cool, and we've got the company information now, and we click continue. And now we want to add Google Sheets as the app, and we're going to create a new spreadsheet row because this is a brand new row. We don't want to update or edit a spreadsheet. We're assuming this is a brand new deal that needs a brand new row. So we can see in our Google Sheet here, it's called Zapier Example Deal Tracker. And we've got some example deals that have already come through that we've done through some of the other Zap setups that I've done, some of the other videos. And I've got a column for each value that I want to keep track of. And I basically just have to tell Zapier which data should go in which column in this sheet. So first we select the account, the Google account we should be connecting up to. And then we've got to make sure we select the required fields here. So we've got to have a spreadsheet, the deal tracker, and then our worksheet is sheet 1. And then the deal name is going to be our deal name from the first trigger step from HubSpot, like this. And then we have our HubSpot deal ID. And you can see here that the deal ID has a little code. So the URL goes through, and we can open this and go straight to the deal. And so the way I've done this is it's a pretty simple formula. You can see it's hyperlink and then speech marks, talking marks, and then the URL, which is for my account always like this. And then we have the ID number. And so this basically creates a URL that we can go straight to. And you could do that in any kind of case. So you can see here, I've got the code, the text code that I've added in here, and I've just pulled this straight from the URL on the page. So let's go to the deal. Yeah, there we go. So we've got our code here for the deal, like this, and then we've got our ID, record ID for the deal, like that. And so we're adding in this will never change from my account. You know, yours will be different because your account number will be different here, and maybe some of the other text might be different depending on your HubSpot account. But then, so this part you need to get for yourself, make sure it's unique based on that URL. And then we then have the Zap token here with the data coming in from that trigger step for the ID for the deal. And then close, make sure you get the talking marks, the bracket, everything in the right place, speech marks, and then comma, and then speech marks again. And then we've got the text we want to have in this space here, this number again. So it's just so it's visible. I mean, you could make that the word link or something else if you wanted to instead, but in this case, I want to have it as the number, and then like that. And then that'll automatically make it into a link if you want to go to it. And you could do that for any of these, or for many of these values as well. We could do the same for company. We could do the same for contact. And then you've just got a quick link, but I think just one link is enough. Because once you go into the deal, which is probably what you're most interested in, you can always then just click the contact and the company record, just like that as well. So we've got that deal name, we've got the deal ID. We don't know the PandaDoc ID yet because we haven't created a PandaDoc document. We're only at the very early stage of our deal flow here. We've got our company name, which has come in from the previous step here, step 5. And we've got our contact details. I've added in the first name and then a space, the last name, space, little square bracket, the email address, and then close square bracket. This is really just for my eyes to see. You know, I'm not planning to use this for any other workflows or anything at this stage. This is just for me to quickly scan the page and to see the name and the email address of the contact. And then what else? We've got the USD. Everything we're doing at the moment is in USD, so we just US dollars, so we just put it like that. Got the number, we've got the close date coming through, pipeline, deal stage. So these are the two values that I pulled in from the trigger step. Again, we don't have PandaDoc status, so that's blank. Create date, like this, and then last modified date, like this. Click continue. And then let's do a retest step. Cool. So what is interesting, when I look at this information that's come through, is we do have the close date coming through, I think as a Unix number, and then the create date coming through in the US style. So this might be an issue, but we'll have a look at that in this test run. But we can go to our Zap and we can go to our Google Sheet and have a look. This is the new row that's just been added in. We can see deal name, looks good. HubSpot ID, let's check this link. Looks good. Blank, and then the company, and then the contact. Amount, close date is a number. So we got to come back to that. And our dates are pretty good, but they are in US. Okay, so I can change this column. Let me just change this. We'll see later if this works. And we can change it to just a date. And we change it like that. And then the create date and last modified date look good. So first Zap setup like this. And then if everything looks good, we can then publish the Zap and turn it on. In this case, I already published it, so I just turn it on instead. And then that one's ready to go. So we've done our first Zap like that. Very straightforward. Now the next Zap we're going to do is for when there's a deal stage update. And so essentially we've got our deal that we're talking about here, this New Republic deal. The stage is at the appointment scheduled step. And we want to say, okay, we've updated this now, it's presentation scheduled. And we also want to update that data into our Google Sheet as well. Because in the Google Sheet, if I zoom out a little bit here, we can see that we've got a HubSpot stage step here. And we want to update this appointment scheduled to the stage we're up to now, which is presentation scheduled. So if we go into our next Zap, which is this deal stage update Zap, let me edit that Zap like this. We can see here we've got the trigger step. Let me click edit. So we've got our trigger step here that's come in from HubSpot that we've set up for HubSpot. The event is new deal property change like this. So any property that changes, specific, we're going to choose which property, but this basically means that any deal property that changes, it'll trigger, anytime it changes, it'll trigger this Zap. So we select new deal property change. This is important because it's very tempting instead to select deal stage, updated deal stage. But this means you need to select a specific deal stage. And what we want to do here is trigger this Zap for every deal stage, not just for one specific deal stage. So that's why we're going to choose new deal property change instead. And then we've got our account already connected up, and we're going to then select the property name that we're looking for that's going to trigger is the deal stage property. So anytime the deal stage property changes, it's going to trigger this Zap, which is good. Obviously we don't want to trigger it for other reasons. So this is a good reason. This is a good example. So we can click find new record, and we've got our deal here that we're talking about. Let's click continue. And now we've got to find the row that we want to edit inside the Google Sheet. So in our Google Sheet, we've got all these rows. We need to tell Zapier, or Zapier needs to work out which row we need to update. And we're going to use this HubSpot deal ID, which is a unique number, unique ID, to be our reference point. Because if you use deal name or maybe company or something like that, there might be many deals over time that maybe perhaps have the same name. Maybe there's a few deals that are done in the same year, and then you're naming, you haven't been clear about how you should name deals, so you have some duplicates, or the company obviously might be there a few times. So you want to use something completely unique, and usually an ID, a record ID, is something unique that you can use, and we're going to use that number there. And that's also another reason why it's important here to have the number viewable rather than just saying link or something like that, because we're going to use this number. So we go into our second step, which is this lookup spreadsheet row in Google Sheets. And then we need to select which spreadsheet we're looking at, which is this deal tracker one we're talking about here. We select our worksheet, sheet 1. Lookup column is going to be our deal ID column, HubSpot deal ID. I changed the name of this one, and so you can see here that it's just called deal ID. But we can tell when we look at it at the choice options, the thing that matters most is what it says here in the gray. So it says column or col $A. It's basically saying column A, column B, column C, column D. And so yeah, it's the same one we're talking about here as column B. When you're setting up Google Sheets, it's important to note that Google Sheets don't actually, in Zapier, they don't keep track of the name of the columns. This is just like another row for Zapier and for Google Sheets. Instead, they look at the column letter, like this B, C, D. So if you were to change the names of these columns, it doesn't change anything. If you were to add new columns in or whatever, it'll mess up the structure. The important thing to keep note of is that it's going to add in information or check information for what the column is, the original column is, not the name you've selected, you've added in for that. So we add in, we get our deal ID, we have our lookup value here, which is this record that we've just talked about here, the record ID from the previous step. And we're going to do a search in this deal ID to find the row that has this record ID. And the rest can be clear. We're not going to create a Google Sheet. You could have that option here if you wanted to. You just have to think it through. So we want to, if it doesn't exist here, we want to get an error and we want to see that it doesn't exist. And then we need to look into some other issue somewhere else in the setup. But you could have it so that like if something does happen to the first zap, that it automatically then will still add a new record with this second zap like this. So for some reason, if this first zap doesn't work, if it's turned off or something like that, then it would still set up a new record like that. But probably you want to find out about that record being, about that first zap not working by getting an error, rather than having this running all the time without realizing that there's a problem with the first zap. So I would turn that off if it was me, but you can make your own choice about that. So create your Google Sheets row. Everything else we can leave the same. I'll remove these extra fields, and then we click continue, and then we can do a test. Okay, click continue. Looks like it's got the right data. And now we're going to add the step to update spreadsheet row based on that previous find step. So we click continue. We find the spreadsheet we want again, the worksheet we want again, and then the row is going to come in from this step 2 here. Look up spreadsheet row in Google Sheets. And so essentially we just have to make sure we're not selecting a specific row like this, but it's a custom and it's coming from the previous step, and it's the ID number like this. So it's important that it's the ID number, it's not some other record. And then it's going to find row 5. And then we add in the details we want to have in again. So it's the same as the previous zap. We've got our deal name. We're adding in this hyperlink. All of this information we don't necessarily have to bring in. Because this is an update spreadsheet row, we should consider that what would be the deal properties that would be changing between the different stages. So when you're in HubSpot and you're moving the deal through the different stages of the sales process, what additional information are you getting that you maybe want to be saving or updating in this Google Sheet? You know, for example, the amount might be changing. The close date might be changing. All of the details could potentially be changing, but some are probably less likely. Like company name is probably not going to change as a deal goes through. So anything you want to change, you need to consider having in your HubSpot step. So this information, actually, the deal ID won't change. So we can remove that. Deal name may change. Maybe it becomes a 2025 deal instead. We can leave that there. We don't know PandaDoc yet. The company probably won't change. The contact probably won't change. Not sure. Amount probably will change. So we can look at changing the amount. Or updating, should I say, updating the amount. The close date, that will probably change. Pipeline probably won't change. HubSpot deal stage, that's the point of what we're doing here. So that definitely will change. PandaDoc, we don't know yet. Create date shouldn't change. And then we have our last modified date. What's interesting is the last modified date coming in from the update from the new deal property change trigger is actually different formatting than the other ones. You can see in this sheet, in the previous one of the previous test apps I've got here, it has a Unix timecode instead of the typical date format, which is interesting. So you would think it would be consistent, but for some reason HubSpot have programmed this differently. So our last modified date is not actually a human readable date. It's a computer readable date. And so we could potentially pull this in and edit it within Google Sheets. And I'm running a test right now and we'll see it come through. Yeah, you can see here that it's overwritten the date that we had before. And now it has this Unix date. And so what we could look at doing is if there's some way that we could format this in Google Sheets but it doesn't look like it. So instead we could use a formula like this, epoch to date. Let's try this out. And we've got to add in one other element, which is the milliseconds. Let's have a look. So epoch to date, we've got the timestamp, which we've already started with, and then our time unit. And I think our time unit would be 2 microseconds, milliseconds. Let's test it out. Okay, sweet. That looks pretty good. So it looks like it's milliseconds, I think that was. So we've got that coming through like that. And I guess we need to do the same here as well. So what I'm going to do is pull this code in and drop it in our Zap. Let me know in the comments if you've got a smarter way to handle this. It's probably a better way to do this, but I haven't experimented with other methods that much, so feel free to share if you have. So this, I'm going to copy this into the close date. I'm also going to copy it into the last modified date, because I could also add a step here where I change the date with a formatting step, but it's just annoying to have to do that multiple times. First, let's try this, and then let's see if that causes any other issues. Last modified dates come through. That looks good. So it does seem to have worked, and I think it's sufficient for what we need. Let's say we wanted to just make it, we want to adjust the date, thrown straight into close date, because close date's quite important. I'm going to show you how to quickly do that with a formatter step as well. You've probably seen this before. I've definitely covered this in other videos, but I want this video to have everything you need. So I'm going to also put it in here as well and quickly show you. Super easy. So we're going to add a quick step here, format, and then we're going to select time, date time, like this. And we're going to change the to month, day, year. And so we go to action, transform, format, grab our close date input like this, and we're going to say to format, and we want to format it into the typical. Let's have a quick look. What was it? So it's with the well, we could just have the date. Actually, I don't know if we really need the time, so we'll just do the date in the American style. So let's have a look like that, and we're going to say the from format is the X, what's called X in Zapier, which is the Unix number, and we're going to leave it all as the same time zone. But you may need to play around with this if you're using different time zones for different technology. And we test the step. Cool, and we got our date here, 31st of March. So let's throw this into our step for the close date. Get rid of this, and instead we just throw in the output from that step like this. Let's continue, retest the step. Cool. Okay, let's have a look at our Google Sheet. Good, it looks like it's come through now, so we can see the close date here. And we've got our date, editable date. See, the downside of this is it's not a date, it's a formula. So it looks all right if you're looking at it, but it's not really like, you can't really click and edit it, play with it that easily. Okay, so now we've got all that, we can publish this. And now this is turned on. So now we've got this step done. The next step is the HubSpot deal decision. So this is our big Zap, and I went through this a couple of days ago in a separate video, so feel free to check that out if you just want to view that in detail, and I'll cover it again now, but I may not go into quite as much detail. So essentially what we're trying to do here in this step is we're saying that, let me open the overview. We're basically going through a HubSpot, we're at the HubSpot deal decision stage. So the presentation's been done. We now have the decision maker being brought in. Now we want to prepare the proposal. So this is kind of like the proposal step. So our trigger for this Zap is going to be changing this stage to decision maker. So we start the Zap with the updated deal stage trigger, event updated deal stage, because we specifically want to trigger this only when the deal changes to decision maker brought in. Click continue, we go trigger, deal pipeline, deal staged, and then if we wanted to, we can get any other additional properties here. Click continue, Let's find new records. And we've got our deal F. So this should be the one we're working on. Yep, the New Republic New Deal 2024. Continue with that record. And then the same as what we've done before, we need to find all the data that we need for this PandaDoc, for this proposal we're going to work on. So we want to find the associations with the deal. So we already went through this earlier in the video, so I'll just quickly jump ahead. Deal ID, deal. In this case, we want 3 associations. So we still want to get company and contact because we need that for this Zap information. But we're also adding in line item. And then we click continue, retest. Great. So we've got our deal, company ID, contact ID, and 3 line item IDs. Continue. And then we want to get our company information. So same as before, ID goes up here for the company, any additional properties, test. And then we've got our contact, same as before as well, utilities we're pulling in. We're adding this with the line item to text transform so that we're getting, if there's multiple contacts, we're just getting the first one, and the separator's the comma by default. So we can retest that like that, continue. And then we've got get contact step. And so we're using that ID that came in from the previous step. We put that in here. And then we have all the properties that are automatically going to be pulled in, any additional property you want to pull in. And then we test that step. Great. And now we get up to the loop step, which I've covered in quite a few videos already, in the last few videos, if you've seen those. I'll go through it again now so that you can also see it again. It's always good practice to have it here, but apologies if you've already seen all my other videos and you definitely know this step, but it's still good to see it again. You can fast forward if you don't need to watch this again in detail. So we got create loop from the line items like this. And basically what this loop step is doing is it's going to pull in the data for each line item in the HubSpot deal, 1, 2, 3. It's going to pull those in one at a time, and it's going to loop around 1, 2, 3, and do all the steps for each line item so we can pull that data in from HubSpot. The way it works in HubSpot is it runs the line item, it runs this loop step concurrently. So basically, if you don't have a delay step, which I'll show you in a sec, it'll pull all the information together. It could get confused by some of the data coming through and maybe misordered if you're not careful. So I've added in a delay step to fix that. So let's have a look first at the loop step. We start with the name of the values we want to loop. So we're calling this, I've called this line items, you can call it products, you can call it whatever you're trying to loop. We then have from the find associations, the line items from the find association step. That's being added in here. So we've got one ID, comma, second ID, comma, third ID. It's going to search for each of these one after another. We're going to trim the white space, start the loop at 1, and end the loop maximum 50. It starts at 500 as default. So I just make it 50 to keep it a little bit smaller, but it doesn't really matter. Continue, and then we can test. Now, when we test in Zapier, it only does the test for the first one. Basically, it only pulls in the information for the first one. It pulls in preview information, but you don't want to put this into your following steps in the Zap, so be careful of that. We'll have a look at that in a sec. So we go in and we add this delay step, and we're saying the app is delayed by Zapier, the event is delay 4, and then we want to say, you could have a number here like 1 minute, but it's going to then delay all loops for 1 minute, and they all start at the same time, so they're all going to continue at the same time. So we need to create a way that we can stagger the loops starting. And the way we do that is by having a 0 point and then the loop iteration. So the loop iteration, the first is going to be 1, the next one is going to be 2, the next one's going to be 3. And so as a result, we naturally delay them as well for that time. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And so this is a sneaky way to create an order for the loops. So we say 0 point and then 1. Time delayed 4 minutes, like that. And then this is fine. We can just test that again just to see. And then that's going to flow through once we turn on the Zap. And then we have line item, get line item. And then the action is going to be our line item from the loop step. So it's important, don't select it from the association step because there are 3. It's not going to be able to do a get line item when there's 3 and 1. It needs to just be one unique record like this. And so we're pulling that in from our step 6. And this one here. We named this line items, so that's why it says line items. If you called it products, it would say products, and then it has the first one like this, and it's going to do the first, then the second, and the third when we actually turn on the Zap. But when we're doing testing and setting up, it'll only do the first one. It'll only show us the first one. And we can get additional properties from the products, from the line items if we need to here as well. Click continue. So we retest that step. Okay, great. And we get the accounting bookkeeping package. Click continue. And now the important thing is we're going to collect all this data that we're doing in the line items into one grouping. So we want to, initially we have each of the products, each of the line items grouped together. We actually want to kind of readjust the way we're grouping things. We want to instead group all the names of the line items together, all the prices of the line items together, and all the quantities. And then that information is then going to be able to be used in the line item step later to add it in to PandaDoc, to the pricing table in PandaDoc. So basically we have to run the Zap through the loops and then add it into this digest, which is going to collect all the item names together with a comma after each one. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm still struggling to work out the best way to explain this, but let me know if you have any questions, and I'd love to help clarify, and then it can also help me clarify my explanation about this as well. So we're going to use this append digest step in Zapier, which is a free tool. It doesn't use up any Zaps or any tasks in Zapier. And we select the event append entry and schedule digest. And I've done a video that spends a bit more time on this, so I'll link to that so that hopefully I can explain it better in that video. But this is basically, we're just going to collect this information. So we start by creating the title. And this title is going to save in the digest. It's going to make sure everything we're pulling through in this loop step is saving under the same title. And so as a result, I've added in the ID number here, just in case we're running, let's say we're running 2 or 3 different Zaps around the same time. They may get mixed together if we just have the item name, because this append digest is shared in your account between different Zaps. So we want to have a unique title so that there won't be any confusion, let's say things overlapping on each other if different Zaps are running together. So we have our unique deal ID, which is from the first trigger step, space, and then item name. And then we have our entry coming in, which is our line item information name, like that. And this is going to be each of the different line items, 1, 2, 3, will be added separately into this append digest step, item name step, like this. And then the frequency, we're selecting manual. We're going to pair it with the release digest step later on. So we'll click continue, retest that step. And then we do the same for append digest. I'm going to test it twice just so I have 2 saved in the digest to show you. 1, 2. Okay. So now, yeah, then we go to the digest item step. Same again, exactly the same. We just change the name, keep the ID the same, item price, and then we have the unit price from step 8. And then continue, test step. And we'll do one more test. So we get 2 values, both 695, because they're both the testing data. And then we go to item quantity, same again. Change it to quantity, and we change the property here to quantity. And then manual again, continue, retest step, 1, 1, great. And then we have to add a loop stop step, because this loop is going to keep going, and it's going to include all the following actions unless we have a loop stop step to basically tell it to just do the loop with the previous steps here. Don't continue the loop down beyond this point. So this is kind of like a little loop stop step. And so we add filter by Zapier. And then importantly, we have to say only continue if step 6, loop iteration is last. And then we say Boolean is true. So basically we're saying if the loop iteration last equals true, then stop and continue, stop looping, and then just continue normally. So we're saying is true, then you should continue basically beyond this step. If it's not true, then go back. And then we then have our release steps. So this is so we can release the data that we've saved in the digest so that we can use it in our pricing table step in PandaDoc. So step 1 is we've got to release the item name digest. You can see here the digest deal ID again, and then we've got our item name. So we're making sure we're releasing the correct data, the correct item name data. Continue, retest step. There we go. We've got our package names, and then the same again for item price. And the faster way to set these up, rather than going one by one, I find, is you can click here, you can copy, and then you can paste below to add these two common ones quickly and easily. And then you just have to make sure you update the name. Like you can update the step name up here, and then update the digest that you're pulling from. We've got our deal ID. And remember, we're adding in this custom. We're not choosing a digest. This is actually quite important as well. You shouldn't choose a digest because this is going to change for each deal you run through this Zap. So you don't choose a digest. You want to make sure you got the custom set up with a deal ID coming from the trigger step, and then the text, space item, space price, for example. So pull in that detail, retest the step. Okay. And then the same for quantity, item, the deal ID, item quantity, retest step. Cool. And then we get into ChatGPT. So the previous video I did about this in more detail, but I've added a step in ChatGPT here to help create. In our PandaDoc proposal, we've got a little section. This is a template from PandaDoc, and we've got a little section called cover letter like this. And rather than having to write this out each time, I thought it'd be great to start with a template also, and some information coming through from ChatGPT. So I've set up and I've added this simple step here. So basically this is a conversation with assistant is the event after you've connected up ChatGPT. And I've done quite a few videos on ChatGPT, so feel free to check those out. If there's anything I haven't covered properly, please let me know. I can do that separately. But we connect up, we've got ChatGPT connected up. We then go to action, and I've written this pretty simple prompt, basically just saying that, you know, to give them an idea that I want to create this professional but friendly sales proposal, 200, 300 words, British English. And then importantly, I've said, you know, like details about my company and also what I want to include in the letter to make it a bit more custom. So I've added the company name, and I've added the little token here from step 3, and then our contact name, and then token from step 5. So we've got the first name of the person, and then deal content. And I've just put a little quick, little very simple hack. If you've got another property that has more detail about the deal, maybe you've got a deal description or something from the trigger step, you could put that in here instead. But I've just put the list of the products that they've selected. And then I've got an assistant that I previously set up. So you could use an existing assistant that you've sort of set up, very simple description in ChatGPT for that assistant, or you can create your own assistant, you know, a name and the instructions for that assistant about their writing style, about the background, etc. I got the model that I've recently been using, ChatGPT 4 at the moment's the best one for sure, but there's new ones coming out. So you got to check the latest model and choose the right one for you. Some models use more tokens than others, more expensive, so keep that in mind. This one seems to be pretty good for me, 1106. You can add other details here, but we're going to skip all that for a second. And then I'm adding a conversation ID with a unique deal ID here so that the conversation is unique and doesn't get mixed up with other ChatGPT zaps and conversations that I've got set up. So it knows that it's always referring to this particular deal, or this ID number is unique. So we'll know the conversation ID is specific. The rest we can skip. We click continue, and then we can do a test. Cool. And then the results have come through here. I trust this proposal finds you well. So this is a trial and error kind of thing. I think you want to keep iterating and improving on your prompt, but this is a starting point for you. And then we get into our create document in PandaDoc step. So we connect up PandaDoc. I've done a lot of videos about PandaDoc, so feel free to check out that playlist for PandaDoc. We basically create a document. We click continue. So the event is create document. We've connected up our account already. And then the actions. So the document name, we've got our deal name, and then I've just added the text proposal. And then a template, sample sales proposal, which is what we've been looking at. And then with our sample sales proposal and PandaDoc, we can use any of these variables. In PandaDoc, they're called variables. They're like little token places. We can use any of these to add text via Zapier, or add details, data via Zapier as well. So I created one like this for this template, and they're really simple to create, just like this. To create a token space, a variable space. So I've added that one here for cover letter content, and there's also some of the other ones here for the client information as well. And so we basically we basically just need to add those in here. I've added this message here as well, but this message would only be visible if we were sending this document with a yes. We're not going to. We want to just save this as a draft so that we can edit it and make improvements. So I wouldn't use this unless you're really confident or it's a very simple document you're sending. We have our role. So this is us as a sender. I've added my email and name. This is not going to change per proposal, but then we do need to make sure we're using the right tokens here for these areas. So this does change each time. So we've got the email address of a contact from step 5, first name, last name, and then the company name as well. And then we can also add the company domain, and we've got the company name again here. So we've got 2 different tokens. That's why the company name is repeated. And then we have the cover letter content. So this is the important part that comes in to this point in the template. You can see here cover letter content, and let me just expand the layout here a bit. So yeah, the company letter content. And so if we go back to the Zap, that's just all going to be saved straight in like this. But I mentioned in my other video, it might be good to have sort of a mix of text and AI here. So you would have your own standard sort of elements, and then you just have AI just for like 1 paragraph or something. Just because sometimes AI can be quite different. And if you want to have some consistency, you might have your own style first, and then just a couple of paragraphs that kind of make it unique for that particular contact as well, that particular client or proposal. So we've got that cover letter content like that. We've got these other tokens we can add in details if we need to. And then importantly, we come up to the pricing table here. And so the pricing table is this one that appears down the bottom, where we have our different products like this. And this is what we're adding in here from the earlier steps from the deal, the line items. We've got our price, we've got our quantity, and then the subtotal is going to be automatically generated like this. Going back into the Zap here, we can see the important step we're adding in here. This is a line item element. You can see in Zapier we've got this little sort of square around this section here, and so we can include the digest and release the digest here, and that's going to release these different the first one, the second one, the third one for the name of the product for the line item, and then the first one, second one, third name for the price, first one, second one, third name for the quantity, for example. And so if we do that here, because we only ran the test with the first run, and we did that twice, we're going to see the first one duplicated. So let's do a quick test of this PandaDoc, and we can see what comes through. So if we go into PandaDoc, we have a look at our documents. We can look for that last one. Yep, here we go. This is our test run that we just did. Cool. So we've got the name of the company. It's coming here. Prepared for information, created by information. We have our long cover letter that's all come through from ChatGPT, like this. Looks pretty good. Obviously need to change this template a bit. It doesn't really work so well with such a long letter. We could also change some of this letter as well. The issue with this structure is, you can see here the value detail, the data that comes through into PandaDoc is all one long massive text box like this, and a string of text, and you just can't edit it very easily. So this is not really a good plan long run. I would say instead it's better to perhaps have the data customized, just a certain paragraph only, and then most of it being standard cover letter text, but just customize one, maybe the second paragraph or something with the AI. Interestingly, there's also this edit with AI feature in PandaDoc as well, which I'll have to go through in another video too, but it could be quite interesting to try that. Okay, so just jumping back then into Zapier, the PandaDoc step is done. Now we need to add this information into our Google Sheet here. We're missing the PandaDoc ID, and we've got to get that in here so that we can create this relationship between the HubSpot ID, the HubSpot deal, and the PandaDoc document. So we have this step where we add in here, which Google Sheets step. So we have the Google Sheets, then we select the event lookup spreadsheet row so that we can find which row we want to edit. We've done this a few times already in this video, so same again, spreadsheet, we select the deal tracker, the worksheet, lookup column is the deal ID again, and we add in that first step, trigger deal ID. So it searches for that. We leave the rest as is, continue, and then we do a test. Just found row 5 again, which is the correct deal. Now we can use that for our update step. So Google Sheets, update row, our action, we do the spreadsheet, find the spreadsheet again, find the worksheet again, and then again, we're using this custom and we're looking for that lookups step and the ID number 5 for that. So that'll change each time here. And then we then want to update the PandaDoc doc ID like this from step 17, coming in there like that. And we also want to update the status here. Now we could also use this as an opportunity if we wanted to also update the amount. You know, like let's say, for example, when you were creating the salesperson, when they're creating the document, they realize that actually this is wrong, that it should be 2, for example, and then the total should be 2085. So we could use this step if we wanted to update the Google Sheet. So the total ends up being the correct amount, let's say. In this case, it's going to all get mixed up because what we're doing is just a test. So this wouldn't be a good example like this, but we can also use this step to update other details, not just the document ID, but other things we want to update in the Google Sheet if they've changed, you know, from this create document step. For example, any detail that comes through here. The information may not all be present there that you want to use. So you might also need to have another step here after the create document where you do an update or you do a find document detail from PandaDoc so you can get more information for the next step in the Google Sheet row. Or there may be another Zap we set up as well. We can look at that in a sec. So we end this Zap here with the update spreadsheet row, and we've added in both the PandaDoc ID number and the PD PandaDoc status, like this, the document status. And so if we do a quick test run of that, we can then see that get populated here and populated here, document draft, like so. And now we can go back and we can turn on this publish and turn on this Zap. So now we've got these 3 steps, 3 Zaps that we set up, 1, 2, 3. And we're at the stage where now the PandaDoc has been sent or is being sent to the prospect, to the client, for them to review. And if they're happy, then they would sign it. And once they've signed it, that's going to trigger the next Zap step like this. And so we have this Zap here. We can edit this one. And this is just going to update the Google Doc. And we can also use it to update HubSpot as well. We'll add that step in. So we can see here in PandaDoc, where we're starting with a PandaDoc and the event is document status changed. We then select source is the template, and then the template we're using is the one we've been talking about the whole time, sample sales proposal. And we're basically saying any change in this will trigger this step. We could select a specific stage or a status, but we want to say any stage because we're going to keep this Google Sheet always updated with whatever the status is of the PandaDoc. And so again, we do the same again that we set up before. So we're setting up, we select the spreadsheet, the worksheet, the lookup column. Now we're doing the lookup column is the PandaDoc doc ID, which is this one that we just started working on here. And let me just trigger this. We've got to get the latest one here. So I'm going to find new records to get the latest PandaDoc that we just been working on. Okay, here we go. So we've got the New Republic that's come through here. Continue. And then we can use that information. So we check the latest in the spreadsheet. So let's do another test of that. Grab the row ID number, row 5. Okay, and now we want to update that row 5. So same as before as well. Spreadsheet worksheet row ID with the custom value. And then what do we want to update? Just the status for this one. So we're updating that status there. Let's retest the step. Cool, now that's worked. And also we want to update, we may want to update the HubSpot status as well. So when the deal is signed, we want to also update HubSpot deal stage to say closed won when the deal is signed. So we can add a filter step here, basically saying that when the document status changes to closed won, or it's completed, let's say, then continue to the last thing. And if it doesn't have that as the status change, then don't continue. So we just leave that just filtering out those that continue. So we can say status like this is completed. Now what I've done is I've gone back into the document in PandaDoc, and I use the share via link, and I've used these links to just pretend to sign the document so that I have its completed status, just to check that really works. So I copy that and I put that in a new window, and I just went through the process of signing, and then it then updates to completed like this. And so I want that to then automatically update the deal here, the stage, to closed and won. So I do that here. So that's going to trigger, when that completed status comes in here, it's going to trigger this step here, and it's going to run through the different stages here, and then it's going to update or go to this filter. So I'm saying if the filter and the PandaDoc status changes to exactly, or it does exactly match, it does exactly match completed like this, then it should continue. If it doesn't, if it's some other status, then it'll stop here. But if it's completed, it'll continue like this, and then we want it to then update HubSpot to closed won. So we select HubSpot, and we're going to update the deal like this. Update deal, continue, choose our HubSpot account. And then so we got our deal ID. So this deal ID is in the spreadsheet row like this. We saved in the previous Zaps we've already set up. The deal pipeline is sales pipeline, the default. And then deal stage, we're going to update the deal stage to closed won. Now that's all we're aiming to do in this step, but we can also use this step to update other parts of the deal. Let's say the document has since changed. You know, the price has also changed here, the value of the deal. You may also want to update that here as well in HubSpot. So you could potentially use this step to update the amount, to update any other elements of the deal, so that it is fully representative of what was in the final PandaDoc contract that was sent out and signed by the client. You know, just in case, depends on your sales process, but often salespeople might be making changes to the PandaDoc itself when they're preparing to send it out, and they may forget to make those updates back in HubSpot. So this is a good way to make sure that stuff gets back into HubSpot. And when that's all ready, you know, there may be properties missing as well. This is the same as all the other Zaps we've set up. We can also pull in additional properties to update anyway. And then we go through and we can test this step. Cool. And then we can go back here and we can see, let's refresh this deal. Cool. Let's change to closed won now. Okay. And we've got decision maker brought in and draft. So these stages haven't been updated in the Google Sheet. Let's go back here. So it's updated here. Did we run this test? With that step. Let's retest this step. Cool. There we go. So we've got the closed won and the completed have now updated in the Google Sheet. So now this Zap is all set, and we can publish this Zap as well. Cool. Now that's turned on as well. And then let's go back to our overview. So now we've set up these 4 Zaps. New deal Zap, deal stage changes Zap, the decision maker, and create the PandaDoc, send it for signing, and update the Google Sheet. And when this all runs, it'll automatically update and maintain, create and update and maintain this row here. So that's it. So it seems like it's complicated. It seems it's taken about an hour to set all this up. And but I think it's going to save so much time in the long run. You can imagine it probably saves an hour a deal at least. So you're going to be seeing benefit from using this almost straight away, and it does everything. And you know, there's still an element of human side of it. You know, you want to check some parts of it. You want to check on the AI. You want to check on the automation. But in general, it's going to save a lot of time having a process like this. And it also allows you to easily keep track and have an overview in a Google Sheet as well if you need to. And again, you can of course use a different tool. You could also, instead of using Google Sheets, you could also use Airtable or Excel. Instead of the CRM, you could also be, instead of HubSpot, you could be using Salesforce or Pipedrive or any other sort of CRM. The logic is the same for any of these systems, these tools, and Zapier allows you to connect them all together. And of course, instead of PandaDoc, you could be using Google Doc maybe, or some other simpler proposal tool potentially, or even maybe even using something like DocuSign or something like that. But I think PandaDoc makes things much smoother for this overall process. But any other kind of proposal tool as well. So give it a shot. Let me know your questions. I'd love to hear back any feedback and any other videos you'd like to see in the future. And if this has been useful to go into this deep dive, or if you prefer my short videos, any feedback would be really welcome. Please help me improve, and please feel free to share. Otherwise, subscribe if this is useful, and if you want to see more videos like this, give me any kind of feedback, and feel free to share this content with anyone you think would find it useful. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay, cheers.